Blood, screaming tourists, a man's body being dragged across concrete by 5 apex predators in broad daylight. This is how Jian Rangkharasamee's 30-year career ended. Not with retirement, but with his flesh being torn from his bones. In 20 minutes, Jian Rangkharasamee will be dead. The security footage shows everything in horrifying detail. A 58-year-old man stepping out of his protective truck, standing perfectly still like a statue, waiting, like he knew death was coming, like he wanted it to happen, like he was tired of fighting to stay alive. But what happened in those final moments defied all logic and reason. The lions attacked from behind with savage brutality. No warning sounds, no chance to run or hide. Just raw, primal violence as 400-pound predators did exactly what nature programmed them to do over millions of years of evolution. What they'd been waiting 30 years to do to him. She had no idea this would be her husband's last morning on Earth. Tourists honked their horns desperately, screaming for help at the tops of their lungs. Children pressed their terrified faces against car windows as a human being was torn apart piece by bloody piece. The attack lasted 15 minutes. 15 long, agonizing, endless minutes of pure horror. But to understand this unthinkable horror, we must go back to the beginning. 11:15 a.m. The screaming starts and never stops. Multiple lions drag something across the enclosure, something that was once human, something that once had dreams and hopes and a future. Tourists frantically call emergency services, but it's already too late. Far, far too late for salvation. 11:12 a.m. The pack feeding begins. Blood pools on concrete as 5 lions work together like the perfect killing machine they've always been. This isn't random violence. This is coordinated hunting behavior that's been refined over millennia. 11:10 a.m. The feeding frenzy intensifies. 5 lions circle their prey like sharks sensing blood in the water. They've caught the scent of weakness, of vulnerability, of death approaching. Predatory instincts kick in completely. The ancient primal hunt begins in earnest. 11:07 a.m. The fatal mistake that changes everything. A truck door opens with a metallic creak. A man steps out into certain death. He stands motionless for 3 minutes. 3 full, eternal minutes. Why didn't he run for his life? Why didn't he scream for help? Why did he just wait for death to claim him? 11:03 a.m. The approach to doom. Jian's truck rumbles toward the lion enclosure, carrying him to his appointment with destiny. He's done this drive thousands of times before, but today feels different. Today carries the weight of finality. 11 a.m. Morning feeding time begins normally. Jian drives his truck into the lion enclosure, just like he has for 30 long years. 30 years of survival against impossible odds. But today is different. Today he's about to break every safety rule that's kept him breathing and his heart beating. But she didn't know what was coming. His wife Ratnaporn woke up that morning talking excitedly about retirement, about buying farmland, about growing old together under the Thai sun. She kissed him goodbye lovingly, not knowing she was kissing a dead man walking, not knowing she would never feel his lips again. The truth was worse than anyone could possibly imagine. Meet Jian Rangkharasamee, 58 years old, married to his beloved Ratnaporn, father figure to many, the family breadwinner, a man who loved wild animals more than his own safety, more than his own precious life, more than tomorrow itself. For 30 long years he walked among killers every single day, lions with teeth like daggers, tigers with claws like razors, apex predators that could end his existence in mere seconds with one swipe, one bite, one moment of fury. And for 30 miraculous years, he came home alive to his wife's loving embrace. But she should have seen the warning signs that were always there. His wife called him calm, careful, methodical, patient, a man who never complained about the dangers, never broke established rules, never took unnecessary risks with his life. Just 2 days before his horrific death, they planned their retirement together with excitement. He was genuinely excited about becoming a farmer, about leaving the dangerous lions behind forever. What she didn't know would haunt her for the rest of her life. Jian was preparing to feed the lions that Tuesday morning, September 10th, 2025. The same exact routine he'd performed thousands upon thousands of times without a single incident. Drive the truck in safely, stay protected inside the metal cage, feed the hungry animals through the bars, drive out alive and intact, simple, safe, absolutely foolproof. He had no idea that death was actively stalking him that morning. The lions knew him more intimately than his own family. Trump, the massive 10-year-old male leader with scars across his golden mane. The 4 females in the deadly pride. They'd seen his weathered face every single day for years and years, fed from his gentle hands, trusted him completely and utterly. But trust means absolutely nothing when primal hunting instinct takes complete control. But that wasn't even the most terrifying part of this story. Safari World Bangkok had been Jian's second home for 3 decades. He knew every corner, every danger, every animal's personality and mood. The other keepers looked up to him as a mentor, a father figure, a survivor who'd beaten the odds for longer than anyone thought possible. Yet something was different that morning. Something dark was stirring. His colleagues later said he seemed quieter than usual, more contemplative, like a man carrying the weight of a terrible decision. But nobody suspected what was about to unfold in front of horrified tourists. The signs were there, but nobody saw them coming. 11:30 a.m. sharp, peak tourist hours at Safari World Bangkok. Hundreds of families driving through in their protected vehicles, windows sealed airtight, doors locked securely with child-proof mechanisms. The rules are carved in stone and written in blood. Stay in your vehicle at all costs. Don't open windows even a crack. Don't get out under any circumstances whatsoever. Ever. But he was about to shatter every rule that had kept him alive. The lions were hungry. Restless. Pacing. It was feeding time, and their powerful stomachs were completely empty after a long night of waiting. 5 magnificent but deadly predators pacing their territory with fluid grace, muscles rippling under golden fur, waiting impatiently for their daily meal. Male lion Trump, nearly 400 pounds of pure muscle and razor-sharp claws, led the deadly pride with the confidence of an apex predator. She made one final decision that would cost absolutely everything. Something's wrong. Terribly, horribly wrong. Jian's familiar truck enters the enclosure normally, engine rumbling like it has thousands of times before. But instead of following 3 decades of ingrained, life-saving protocol, he does something unprecedented. Something that defies 30 years of hard-earned survival experience and animal behavior knowledge. The security footage revealed something absolutely unthinkable and inexplicable. He opens his door with deliberate slowness, steps out into the open killing field, into the domain of apex predators, surrounded by 5 hungry lions who haven't eaten in hours. And then he just stands there, completely motionless like a statue, for 3 full, eternal minutes, like he's waiting patiently for death to find him and claim his soul. What happened next changed everything forever and shattered countless lives. Dr. Thawachai Kanchanaran, a horrified witness and former military surgeon, couldn't believe what his experienced eyes were seeing unfold. I was surprised from the very moment I saw the employee get out of the vehicle. He just stood there, perfectly still, completely motionless, like he was in some kind of trance. But she didn't know the most disturbing part was still coming like a freight train. The tourists watching through their supposedly safe car windows thought it was some kind of elaborate show at first. Maybe the lions knew him personally and intimately. Maybe they were friendly and gentle. Maybe this was completely normal and part of the daily routine. They had absolutely no idea they were about to witness a human being eaten alive in broad daylight. Wait until you hear what happened in those final terrible seconds. The lions' behavior changed instantly. Their heads snapped toward Jian like magnets drawn to metal. Eyes locked onto prey. Nostrils flared. catching his scent, muscles tensed for the kill. This was no longer feeding time, this was hunting time. But the most chilling detail was yet to come. 11:07 M. exactly. Jian stands perfectly still in the lion enclosure, like a man accepting his fate. His back turned to the most dangerous predators on Earth. Completely defenseless. Utterly vulnerable. A lamb willingly walking into a den of wolves. The lions notice immediately with predatory precision. Their heads turn in unison, eyes lock onto unexpected prey. Hearts begin racing with hunting excitement. Trump, the massive 400-pound male with battle scars, starts moving with deadly purpose and intent. Stalking, hunting, planning the kill, 10 meters away from his victim. The distance closes with terrifying speed and precision. 8 meters of safety vanishing. 6 meters of hope disappearing. 4 meters of life remaining. Then the absolutely unthinkable happened in broad daylight. The attack comes from behind with devastating, bone-crushing force. No warning sounds or growls. No chance for escape or survival. Trump launches his massive body through the air like a guided missile and slams into Jian with the crushing force of a freight train traveling at full speed. The impact alone would shatter every bone in a human body. But this is just the horrifying beginning of a nightmare that will haunt witnesses forever. 4 more lions join the feeding frenzy with supernatural speed. 5 apex predators against 1 defenseless human being. It's not a fight. It's not even a contest. It's pure savage feeding behavior that's been perfected over millions of years of evolution. And he never made a single sound of pain or terror. Here's what makes this even more bone-chilling and psychologically disturbing. Jian never screamed for help, never called out in agony, never fought back against his attackers with any survival instinct. He just accepted it completely, like he knew this was exactly how his life story would end, like he had planned it this way. The silence was more terrifying than any scream could have been. Witnesses later described the eerie quiet from the victim. While tourists screamed in horror and children cried in terror, Jian remained silent as death itself. Was he in shock? Had he planned this? Was this suicide by lion? These questions would haunt investigators for months to come. For 15 eternal minutes of pure, unfiltered horror, tourists watch helplessly as lions drag Jian's broken and bleeding body across the blood-stained concrete like a rag doll. Children are screaming in absolute terror. Parents are frantically honking horns and shouting at the top of their lungs, desperately trying to scare the predators away from their helpless victim. Nothing works against nature's programming. Nothing can stop millions of years of evolution. The lions follow their deepest, most primal instincts with mechanical precision. Bite with crushing force, claw with razor sharpness, tear with savage efficiency, rip with predatory purpose. This is exactly what they were born to do. What millions of years of ruthless evolution and natural selection programmed them for. They're not evil monsters or sadistic killers. They're just being lions. But for the traumatized families watching this nightmare unfold, it's pure horror that will haunt their dreams and nightmares for the rest of their lives. At first, people thought the lions might be familiar with the staff member. Witness Dr. Thawachai later recalled with horror still evident in his voice. They assumed the lions were trying to greet the keeper in a friendly manner. So no one intervened immediately. We thought it was normal interaction. By the time the horrified witnesses realized it was a deadly attack and not a friendly greeting, it was already far too late for any human intervention. The tourists' initial confusion cost precious seconds that might have saved a life. Car horns blared desperately. Voices screamed warnings in multiple languages. Hands pounded on windows. But the lions were in full predatory mode now, deaf to everything except their killer instincts. This was nature at its most brutal and unforgiving. Phanom Sitsang, another brave zookeeper and Jian's close friend, sees the carnage unfolding before his horrified eyes. He doesn't hesitate for even a single second. He guns his vehicle straight into the lion enclosure at maximum speed, risking his own precious life to save his dying colleague and friend. It takes him precious, critical minutes to navigate through the chaos, and reach Jian's mangled, bleeding body. When he finally manages to pull him away from the blood-hungry lions, the catastrophic damage is already done beyond any hope of repair. Multiple deep lacerations cover his entire body. Broken neck vertebrae, ruptured arteries spurting life, massive blood loss creating pools on concrete. Jian is rushed to Intrarat Hospital in a desperate high-speed race against time and death. But his fate was sealed the moment he stepped out of that protective truck and into the killing field. He's pronounced dead on arrival despite heroic efforts. Another victim of nature's brutal, unforgiving laws. But the questions were just beginning to multiply. Hospital staff later revealed that Jian's injuries were consistent with a coordinated attack by multiple large predators. The wounds showed evidence of both crushing bite force and razor-sharp claws. His internal organs, surprisingly, remained largely intact, suggesting the lions were displaying typical feeding behavior rather than aggressive territorial violence. This detail would become crucial to understanding what really happened. The investigation begins immediately with urgent burning questions that demand answers. How did this preventable tragedy happen? Why did a 30-year veteran break every sacred safety rule he'd followed religiously? Was it intentional suicide by animal? A terrible accident? A moment of complete mental breakdown? His devastated wife, Ratanaporn, is completely shattered and inconsolable. He loved this job more than anything, loved all animals, and was very calm and careful his entire career. She insists, through endless tears of grief. Just 2 days ago, we talked excitedly about life after retirement. He wasn't depressed at all. He was actively planning our future together. But the haunting questions remain completely unanswered and may never be solved. Why did he get out of safety? Why did he stand motionless for 3 minutes? Why didn't he scream or fight back against certain death? The zoo management claims animal attacks never occur at their supposedly safe facility. They blame Jian entirely for violating established safety protocols. But critics immediately point to expired operating permits, damaged security fences, and completely inadequate safety measures throughout the park. The 5 lions involved in the killing, including the primary attacker, Trump, are confined indefinitely for behavioral training and assessment, not executed for their actions, just retrained, as if you can train away millions of years of deadly predatory instinct embedded in their DNA. 3 weeks later, the terrifying questions still echo through Safari World Bangkok like ghosts. Visitors now drive through the reopened lion enclosure, with windows rolled up tighter than ever, remembering the unthinkable horror they witnessed that day. The concrete has been cleaned, but the memories remain forever stained. Jian's brutal death has sparked international outrage about Thailand's dangerous and poorly regulated animal tourism industry. This was the second fatal animal attack in the country in 2025 alone. In January, a Spanish tourist was killed by an elephant at a sanctuary. But Jian's case is different, more disturbing, more psychologically complex and inexplicable. Because he knew better than any human alive. He had 30 years of hard-earned experience with apex predators. He understood the deadly risks better than anyone on Earth. So why did he choose to walk into certain death? The truth may be darker than anyone imagined. His heartbroken wife still doesn't have answers that make sense. The zoo refuses to release the complete security footage. The investigation continues with no clear resolution, but some questions about human nature and animal instinct may never be fully answered or understood. What we know for certain is this. On September 10, 2025, at exactly 11:07 a.m., a man made a choice that cost him everything and changed everyone who witnessed it forever.